Welcome back to the upper tier, folks. Tonight we have a show, a little bit of wrestling, as they say, in our normal Tuesday flavor, where we do a review of Dark Side of the Ring. And this week it's the turn of Adrian Adonis. But before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification. We're so close to that 1,000 subs now, we can literally taste it. So if you could subscribe to the channel. We have noticed as well there's a number of people moonlighting in the background on the channel and stuff like that. We had a look at our analytics over the weekend, and 43% of you who view the channel on a regular basis are not subscribers, which is very disappointing. So if you are viewing the channel and you haven't subscribed, get down there and hit the subscribe button. It's free. We don't charge or anything like that. We don't have any memberships or, little links and extra content. No, we give you all the content here every week. We don't mess around and stuff like that. So, of course, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and, of course, drop a like on the video. And this one, again, was a similar one to what we've seen. There's a kind of a theme and a flavor running through season 4 of Dark Side of the Ring. All equally as sad when you look at them and stuff like that. But this one is and also a very interesting one as well. And I kind of certainly Adrian Adonis, he was a very interesting character. I didn't see an awful lot of Adrian Adonis until the clips from Dark Side of the Ring. I mainly would have seen him mainly WrestleMania 3 against Piper, where he got the hair chopped and stuff like that. And shortly after that, I think he disappeared because of his issues and his demons and stuff like that. That's what they believe. He exited the building from WWF. But again, it's another kind of tragic tale of a very, very talented guy in the business who got the opportunity to go up to the big smoke, as they say, WWF in New York and in that Eastern board, if you like. Obviously was making an awful lot of money and stuff like that. But also like so many of them do, and the kind of the culture that was in there at the moment. These people generally find cocaine, and then you start down that path and you can't stop. And then things go awry, and then it just gets darker and darker and darker. And ultimately, with this one, unlike Magnum's one, this one ended up with a car crash where, unfortunately, Adrian Adonis was killed, along with 2 other passengers in a 4-man car. So we get into some of the detail of it and stuff like that. Let us know your thoughts. I don't know how many of you would have been Adrian Adonis fans. We would remember him briefly. I mean, my recollection basically is WrestleMania 3, and then he did the remember the like Piper's Pit, he did the flower shop and stuff like that, and also they're kind of my memories of him and stuff like that. But we take in the chat. Del Boy is in, dropping in to say hello, pal. Have a good show. Really appreciate Del Boy. If you haven't subscribed, get over to Del Boy's channel and subscribe. That's another man pushing to the 1,000 before the season starts. So make sure you support him. So for that, we did a great show last week on the FAI. Warren as well did a cracking show as well with the slides and stuff like that, and all always does a great job. I am going to be on Warren's channel. We're going to be recording a show on Friday talking about my life as a football fan. So we'll go deep into that as well, and we'll drop a few nice nuggets and stuff like that. And I think Warren was saying to me today it might be out either Sunday or Monday, so keep an eye out for that. Warren's team talk. Thursday, I'm going to be on with Darren at 9. We're going to be talking about the new football kits for the new season coming up 23-24. It's a show we do every year. It's just a bit of a fun show where we look at all the kits and we give our opinions on the good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say. So check that out as well. And tomorrow morning as well, I'll be on probably in the car doing another morning drive. We'll give you all the latest updates and stuff like that. We won't be talking about Luis Diaz going to Saudi Arabia or any of that kind of nonsense. We'll be giving you the straight stuff as we do it. Ian is in. What's the crack, Niall? All good, I'm a little bit under the weather, lad, so help me out here in the chat. We'll have a bit of fun with this one. These are tough episodes and stuff like that, but I'm choking a little bit here with a head cold. My sinuses are at me a little bit, and I have a sore throat, and I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, but I have the strepsils and I have the water and everything else. And Panoff is in as well. How are you, Panoff? Good to see you, man. Great to see you on Doug's chat as well earlier when we were doing the show there, the preview. So big up to Panoff as well. So where do we begin with this? Adrian Adonis. And straight away, when I hear the name Adrian Adonis, I don't think of what they portrayed initially. For me, it was the kind of, the gay stereotype kind of thing that they went with and that kind of thing. And that's what I remember him. My memories of him are basically WrestleMania 3 against Piper, where he got the haircut, and also his kind of vignettes with the flower shop and stuff like that. So that's my memory of him. But he was back in the A. He started out in the AWA, and he was a tough, athletic guy. And I was shocked at some of this footage and all. He was in fantastic shape, that real old school wrestler shape, where they're carrying a little bit of weight just for that bit of padding and protection, but not too much, but always in great physical condition. But he started out in the AWA, and he was really important in terms of he was very, very good for getting guys over. So he was brilliant at selling, and he was brilliant at making guys look at $1,000,000. And that's an art form in itself, which is really, really important, Panoff back in, I feel the same, Niall, sore throat. Yeah, it's absolutely killing me, Panoff. I got those Strepsils, though. They have these new ones that are really expensive. They're like €8 a box. But they have a kind of an anesthetic in them that numbs your throat and stuff like that. So that's probably why I sound very weird tonight and stuff like that, because my throat is quite numb from the Strepsils and stuff like that. But check them out, Panoff. They're worth a whirl. But yeah, we see him talking about and how important he was to getting Greg Gagne over and stuff like that. And, it made him really, really popular as well with people. Because guys like that in the business are tough to find. We've often spoke about how good Dolph Ziggler is at doing those things and stuff like that in the modern day situation and that kind of thing, and in a business really that's quite insular and quite, where you're the focal importance and stuff like that. It's not often that you find a guy that cares so much about the people he's in there with and getting them really over and stuff like that. So that's why, and it comes a little bit full circle. Don't worry about that, but we'll look at that as well, But he was often liked by his peers and also by promoters and stuff like that. And eventually this led him to being hired by WWF. And this is kind of the interesting move, because as we've seen in most of these shows on Dark Side of the Ring, once that move to the WWF happens and you gain the wealth and the riches that comes with that, that's when it kind of goes astray. Because that's where you're moving into a different culture at that time that was there, and there was drugs, there was drink, there was, you were up and down the road, you were putting in the hard miles, you were away from your family, all that kind of stuff. So it was tough. So Vince McMahon, his kind of WWF in the mid to late 80s was there was a lot of gimmicky stuff. He wanted these characters and stuff like that, Also evolved certainly at the beginning of the 90s as well, where it came full circle as well. But Adrian Adonis had to have an over-the-top gimmick. That's how he looked at it. And what he did was he put this gimmick on Adrian. He was wearing makeup, and there was pink trucks, and he had the trunks, and he had the boas and all that, and he had the powder puff thing, and it was exaggerated and all that kind of thing. It was a gay kind of stereotype thing and stuff like that, and going in there at the time, they make the point as well that if you were just going in there as a tough guy who beat up people, which was the kind of, that was the idea at the time and stuff like that. They had so many of those guys that they needed to bring in guys to give you just something a little bit different. So just going in there as a tough guy who beats up people really didn't wash. So you needed that bit more. And that's how Adrian Adonis was born. Came in, and he was, it was pretty obvious that it was a gay stereotype and stuff like that, and he sold it on TV through vignettes and interviews and all that kind of stuff. He'd stand up and say he was a gay man and all this kind of thing, although we know the background. He was happily married to his wife, and he had his kids and all that kind of stuff. So this was the character that he was playing. Meltzer comes on then. Dave Meltzer comes on and obviously talks about the gimmick and how the gimmick was designed to get straight people, and this kind of demonstrates how far we've come as a society when we talk about that whole area. But he reckons it was designed to encourage straight people in the audience to jeer the gay wrestler. And this, you got to remember, we're talking here mid 80s kind of stuff and all, so it was really, really interesting at the time. But that's how he described it, and he said, and several very offensive crowd signs from the time certainly backed that up. So yeah, at that time it was kind of like open kind of season. So it's great to see how we've developed as a society, that we don't still live in that kind of situation, And Bret Hart spoke about him. He said that Adrian Adonis didn't like the gimmick, and Bret there's a nice line through here with Bret as well. Bret considered him really, really good, and it comes full circle at the end with some nice things that we'll talk about. But Bret really thought he was really, really good, and he was really, really good. Henry's in. Hi Niall, just come to give you a video like. Cheers, pal. Really appreciate it. Big up Del Boy, Richie, and Panoff. Hope you're all well. Eno's in. Wasn't Adrian Adonis's gimmick a spin off of Adrian Street? sort of, but ratcheted up a little bit. Panoff is hi Henry, and Henry hi Panoff. Love it. There's community in here and all that kind of stuff. But he said that Adrian Adonis didn't like the gimmick at all, but that he would go with it, of course, because whatever gimmick you were given, it was always good to try and get that gimmick over, because otherwise, if you kind of backed off and then you didn't make it work, sometimes you might have been seen to be a little bit difficult and stuff like that, you know. And we know that there's a history in there with McMahon as well. He likes to try and, you know, fling shit at the wall and throw it at you to test your resolve and your resilience about how you feel about things and how you're really prepared for the business and all that kind of stuff. So he would bring up some of these things on the fly and stuff like that, throw them at wrestlers and see how they coped. And that hasn't changed a lot. That still happens at times. Um, he said a good portion of the show, which I really, really liked, he loved his wife and children, obviously. And a significant portion of the show is dedicated to the relationship with his wife and children and stuff like that. And the kids talk about how he would come home after a trip, whether he's gone a week or 2 weeks, and he'd have loads of gifts for the kids and stuff like that. He'd have been collecting gifts while on the road and stuff like that. And, you know, there was a real loving relationship there and stuff like that. Um, and even Bret Hart mentions that he was a devoted husband and a devoted father and all that kind of stuff. So this guy was an all-round good guy. You know what I mean? He did his business at the time for a week or whatever it was. He was on tour with these house show schedules or whatever it was. And then he come home and absolutely spoiled the family. And obviously he was enjoying the riches of being in WWF and all that kind of stuff. Eventually on the road, one thing that happens with these guys is this kind of loneliness kicks in, and eventually you seek solitude and in drinking and drugs and in various things like that. That's the culture at the time and stuff like that. And he found himself, cocaine was the drug of choice, and cocaine was huge at the time and readily available. And these guys were earning plenty of money, so there was money slushing around, stuff like that. And they were enjoying it. And Brett talks about how the Heart Foundation came into one of their rooms, and I think Adrian was there and stuff like that. And you know, it just to Brett, he was taken a little bit back by it and stuff like that. And himself and Jim didn't want to get too heavily involved in it. And after a while, they kind of hung around, but they steered clear of it and stuff like that. But they talk about what happened was with Adrian's case. What happened was, as the cocaine got ratcheted up, and the aggression got ratcheted up by him, and he was starting to express this in the ring as well in terms of his work. He was kind of, you know, as they say, leaving a punch in there or a kick or whatever it is and injuring people, and purposely to demonstrate, you know, this theory of being a hard man and this kind of thing and this kind of thing. And had a run in with Dan Spivey, and he's interviewed in the show and stuff like that. Says that he had made peace with him and stuff like that. But on one night they had a proper go, and Dan ended up getting fired because Dan ended up lettering into him in the changing room and stuff like that. Took him clean off his feet over an incident that happened. He mentioned that the drug problems got worse and stuff like that, and it just escalated and escalated. And Adrian ended up getting them. He ended up leaving the building as well, you know. But Dan got fired over the incident and stuff like that. And he mentions that he had made peace with Adrian and stuff like that. But then we come to the twist in this whole thing and stuff like that. Adrian goes out and he starts working shows with various other wrestlers and stuff like that. And then he ended up in a car crash. There was 4 of them in the car. I think it was Mike Kelly, Pat Kelly, Dave McKigney, I think is his name, the Beard Man, and also Adrian Adonis. And the story is that they swerved to avoid hitting either a bear or a moose. It wasn't clear from the show what it was, but some animal. They were obviously traveling in an area like that, because if you remember, when you're running that loop up there around that area, it's wilderness, you know what I mean? And the talk is the van ended up in the water down below, went down a ravine and stuff like that. Adrian was killed in the crash along with Pat, I think it was, and along with Dave, and it was Mike who survived, as far as I know. Yeah, Mike survived, and all the reports came out and stuff like that. So quite a tragic and sad end. And a lot of reports came out. There was talk about the drugs and stuff like that, but Mike on the show refutes that, the drug reports and stuff like that, and he says that there was tests done and all that kind of stuff, and that wasn't actually the case. And seeing as he's the only guy who's alive from it, he's the guy whose word we have to take. So yeah, but very, very sad, a very, very sad ending there as well. And you know how the cocaine situation ratcheted up things. Does talk he put on a huge amount of weight as well. Like if you look at Adrian Adonis at the start of this show, and you compare him to Adrian Adonis, say from WrestleMania 3 or the latter end of his WWF career, he was absolutely ginormous. He had blown up, and you know obviously there would be health issues associated with that, and that coupled with sort of drinking and cocaine and carrying that amount of weight is never a great recipe for that kind of thing. Uh, Ian's in. How is it going, Henry? Good stuff. Um, but yeah, it seems to be a very, very sad story, you know. And you know, Brett then comes on, which was really, really nice. And this is a nice way to round out the episode, really, where Brett says that he believes that he was that good that Brett could have faced him at WrestleMania, and that's quite a statement to make, you know, because if I'm looking from the outside in and my experience of Adrian Adonis from what I seen, I would have never thought that was the case, you know. But for Brett to say that, that's a huge rub off Brett to make a comment like that, and I think that was really nice in terms of how it rounded out the episode and stuff like that. So you had a guy who started out really, really good with his craft and his art, did a great job of, you know, putting people before himself and stuff like that. So much so that he was so liked by promoters and by wrestlers and his fellow peers and stuff like that, that he got that great call and that great job to go to New York to WWF. And while he was there, developed this character, this Adrian Adonis character, Lauren with McMahon. Yeah, the hair versus hair match at WrestleMania 3 was incredible. Yeah, Acer, yeah, it was mad. Like at the time, it was just crazy, and even to see the way the head was shaved and stuff like that, the use of the sleeper hold and all, it was really cool. Um, but yeah, it was kind of then, and then he kind of, you know, he fell into that kind of culture and all that kind of stuff, and then he found it very difficult to get out of that, gained a lot of weight, got let go by WWF, started working the circuit with these other guys, and ended up in a tragic car accident that killed himself and two others, with Mike Kelly being the one surviving. You got to remember with Mike as well. I mean, Mike lost his brother. So it's a tough one, you know. Um, and again, another tough one to watch, but I do like the way with this one, in the midst of all that tragedy, you get this information coming through that he was a family man. He loved his wife. He loved his kids. He always cherished them. You know, he gave them everything that they wanted when he could and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, Brett with that line say he believes he would have faced him at WrestleMania. That's how good he was. Uh, so, yeah, absolutely unbelievable, you know. Uh, yeah, absolutely. It is sick that he got mugged whilst dying on the floor. Yeah, absolutely. It's so sad. But yeah, absolutely. But that rounds out Adrian Adonis. It's another review, of course, of Dark Side of the Ring. I think up this week, I think as far as now, we have Abdullah the Butcher. And that's going to be a very interesting one as well for all you guys and gals out there. And we will be reviewing that next week as well. So keep an eye out for that one as we keep this wrestling going. We'll try and get around to pumping out a show this week as well. We look at all the wrestling news as well. And we'll take a look back in history as well and have a look at some notable birthdays as well. We'll get that show up and going as well. Then hopefully next week we might even have a collector's corner and stuff like that. We keep this pro wrestling momentum going and stuff like that. But really, really important, folks, if you are looking at the content, if you're sharing it, whatever it is, make sure you're getting people subscribe. Keep on pushing us forward and stuff like that as we're going. You're doing a brilliant job at the moment, but we just need that little bit more. Hope you're enjoying the content. Was he involved in 2? I'm not too sure, Daz. I know my first memory of him is in 1. Sorry, is in 3. The haircut match with Piper. So I'm not too sure. Maybe Acers knows whether he was involved in 2. I'm not sure whether he was or not. Maybe he was. I'm not too sure. But my first memory of him was in 3 against Piper, the hair versus hair match. Lewis Diaz, don't worry about that. That's all nonsense. 50 million. That wouldn't get one of his legs. Yeah, so I'm not too sure that, but certainly he was an absolute character, as many of them were at that time and stuff like that. So hope you're enjoying the reviews. They are tough, some of these to watch. Not as tough as some we've had to do if you go back through season 1 to 3 and stuff like that. There's some real dark side of the rings in there and stuff like that. We did a lot of them on the the Dynamo Podcast Network and stuff like that. So I might pull out a few of those episodes as well and re-upload them on the new channel and stuff like that for you to have a look, because we went through some tough ones now. The Grizzly Smith one, Jake Roberts' dad and stuff like that. That was a really, really tough one to do, and a few others. Obviously the Ohm one, and the Benoit ones, they're always really, really tough to do, Daz is in all right, Panoff. Very, very good. So, folks, thanks for joining me again tonight. I hope you're enjoying these reviews and stuff like that. I hope you're enjoying all the content. Certainly, it's been a much busier summer than I thought it was going to be. And thank you for supporting the channel as always as we push towards 1,000. Hopefully, get that done before the season starts in just over 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. Ian is in. That would be the drink and drugs that would have caused that for Adrian to have his weight blown up. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably as well. And then probably as well, trying to hold down if you're dabbling that stuff, you're not going to get up every day and do your gym work, are you? And necessarily your diet as well and all that kind of stuff and all, So yeah, great point in. And great show. Really appreciate it, folks. Daz is in. Did you hear Chris Benoit's lad is in? Niall. Yeah, I seen something about that. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen him, Daz, as well. He's the absolute image of the dance, stuff like that, but it'll be interesting to see. But until next time, folks, listen, enjoy your week, stay safe. Hope you're enjoying all the content. Pre-season is in full swing, so we'll be covering a little bit of that. I did do Doug's show earlier, so check out his channel as well. I was on with Daz. Good crack on that as well. And also check out Dave's channel as well, and all the other channels in there. Morris absolutely knocking it out of the park as well. All the channels at this stage, Henry's and everyone else's. And until next time, folks, we'll talk to you again real soon.